Welcome to the Monday night edition of the People Show, and I am glad that you all have joined us here on intellectualradio.com and iHeartRadio. We have a great program for you, and we're going to get started. And of course, tonight we are celebrating and we are honoring the life and the legacy of the great mayor of the city of Chicago, the first black man to be elected to the city of Chicago in 1983, and served until his untimely death in November 25th of 1987. Harold Washington. I came to the city of Chicago in the middle of his first term in office, and as a result of coming here, and when I got here, I didn't really know anything about Harold Washington. Really didn't know very much about Chicago politics at the time, and did not know that this transformational election had actually taken place. So when I got to the city of Chicago, I was really just trying to find my way and get adapted to the city of Chicago, but quickly was thrust into watching what was going on in politics. As every day that I would go back home and turn on the news, it was almost like a sport between this political fisticuff between Harold Washington, Ed Verdoliak, and Ed Burke. Ed Verdoliak at the time was the, I guess you could call him the leader of the 29, and he was the chair of the finance committee at that time. And of course, they were doing all that they could to block Harold Washington from moving forth with his agenda. And they were in court on a seemingly like a daily basis. But the one thing that drew me to paying more attention to this man who would later become this historic icon, and certainly became an icon to me in terms of my political engagement and advocacy and the social work that I do. Now, I've never run for political office, and don't think that is in my future to run for political office. I would never say never, but at 65 years of age, I'm not sure that that would be something that the public would want me to do. But I think that I could have some impact on public policy, and have had some impact on public policy, and reaching out and helping and advocating on behalf of our people through this work. But I would not be doing this work at all if it were not for the example of Harold Washington. Now, I've never formally met Harold Washington. I've never met him. I've only seen him one time in person when he came to the church that I was a member of, which was the Union Missionary Baptist Church, during the 1987, his second run, during his 1987 campaign. He came by the church, and he spoke to the congregation at that time. And that was the only time that I had ever seen Harold Washington in person. But of course, I've seen him on television and watched him very closely. Now, and was just drawn to what I deemed as the authenticity of this man, and certainly of what I consider to be a public official and a public servant. Harold Washington typified that to me. He was exemplary for me as to what a public official looks like and conducts himself or herself like, advocating for all, but certainly not ignoring the community that they came from. I have not seen a public official I have not seen a public official who was able to garner that type of service, serving all, but certainly not forgetting and not ashamed to speak about the conditions of the community that he came from, and made sure that the community that he came from and the community that had been disenfranchised and that had been underserved for decades, that he, as the administrator, as the mayor of the city of Chicago, made certain that there was inclusion, equity for the Black community, and equity that was reflective and representative of the Black community. That has not existed in Chicago by any public official, Black or white, since Harold Washington. It has not existed. Harold Washington asserted and made sure that because we were 1/3 of the population in this city, that he made sure that we had 1/3 of the resources, contracts, and that he was working towards in this city. He made certain of that. In fact, some of the people who worked in his cabinet, I would have them on, and I've had many of them on over the years celebrating him, would tell you that Harold Washington said, "You cannot bring me contracts to sign off on if those contracts do not reflect the city of Chicago." He made certain that there was equity, serious inclusion of Black contracts and resources in this city. That I have not seen. And there were fewer Black people who held public office at that time than they hold public office now. We have more Black people in public office today as, excuse me, as a result of Harold Washington being elected mayor. And there are more people who ran for public office touting Harold Washington, but certainly did not reflect Harold Washington's spirit whatsoever. And so that is the person who I try to model my advocacy about, is that we can fight for justice for all, but we certainly don't have to forget the community that we come from and the community that we stand for. We're not anti anybody else, but being pro-Black doesn't mean that you're anti any other group. But we have to fight for the equity and the issues that face the Black community. Harold Washington did that in a very masterful way, and he represented all. He represented the Hispanic community, the Asian community, the Jewish community, the Italian community. He was someone who was able to represent all, but also getting all to recognize that there were people who had been underserved. And here is a commercial that I pulled up, and I'm going to be showing some clips throughout the program as we are honoring Harold Washington on this Wednesday. He would have been 103 years old. He was born April 15th, 1922, and unfortunately had a heart attack and died on November the 25th, 1987, and he was 64 years of age. And on this Wednesday, he would have been, if he had lived, 103 years old.
Only one candidate for mayor has represented Chicago in both Springfield and Washington. Only one candidate has dealt successfully with big city problems in both state and federal government. Only one candidate knows how to get the money and jobs Chicago needs. So what's to keep us from making this candidate our next mayor? Nothing. Elect the one candidate qualified to be the mayor. Harold Washington.
We can all win.
And that was Harold Washington's motto. And he lived by it, and he worked towards it, and he put it in place, and he had people in place, and he made sure that they worked towards his vision. Unfortunately, he was only with us for 55 months. When I came to the city and learned of Harold Washington, learned of who he was, and then fully grasped who Harold Washington was, his spirit just embodied my spirit. I felt, as a Black man, the most proud that I have ever felt. And I was only 25 years of age at the time. But it was one of the most pivotal times that I can identify as a Black man, to walk the streets of a city, of a major city like the city of Chicago, and felt proud because Harold Washington was the mayor. I would walk down the sidewalk. I remember there was a time that I was walking down the sidewalk with some friends of mine, Darnell Harris and some other people, and we were going someplace, walking down the street, and I was being a little bit goofy, walking on the sidewalk and on the streets, and somebody shouted out to me, "You better get out of the street. They're going to give you a ticket for jaywalking." And I proudly and boastfully said, "I can walk wherever it is that I want to. Harold Washington is running this," meaning that we have someone that we could believe in, and someone that we were very proud of. And Harold Washington made you feel like you had a friend on the fifth floor. Again, I'd never met Harold Washington, never had a conversation with him, unfortunately, and I've only seen him in person one time at a church that he came by to speak to our congregation. But I've never actually met him. All right, joining us is for this week's Monroe Monday. We have a packed hour to talk about a whole bunch of things, and he is also going to be here to talk with me about Harold Washington. I'm going to bring him in, and this is our Monroe Monday with retired veteran journalist Monroe Anderson. Monroe, welcome to the program. How you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm good.
Good.
And,
Good.
and I did meet Harold Washington on a number of times. So yeah.
Well, what was your take on who Harold Washington was, and did he have an impact on you as a Chicagoan and as a Black man?
Well, the thing is, being a journalist, you have to keep that sort of thing in control to some extent, because you're supposed to be balanced. But
no, I get it. I understand all of
yeah,
that. But I understand that. But
right.
but you can sparse out. You can now tell what your thoughts are, because even as a journalist, after you do the story, you have your conversations, like you have your opinion.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, well, what I was about to continue with this is that he had a great impact on my career. The first time I met him, we were on WVON. I had just done I was at the Tribune, and I had just done an investigation on auto repair in Chicago and Chicagoland. And we went out 52 times with specific malfunctions in the car that needed repair. And we knew what the price was supposed to be by the blue book. And we got ripped off 26 times, half the times that we went out. So I was on VON, and Harold was on there as a guest. And so I was talking about it, And the first question from him to me was, did I go to his neighborhood, to the South Side? And I said yes, because we had. In fact, that was why I was on the investigation. It was me and a white reporter, and they wanted somebody like me who could go naturally into the black community. And at the time, I had been ripped off there by an Amico for a transmission malfunction. Anyway, that was the first time I met him, and then I talked to him periodically. I would bump into him and see him, and when they drafted him, tried to draft him, um, I had been covering the black community. I went to Push every Saturday. Had a lot of connections because I was the only reporter at the Tribune interested in giving any serious coverage to the South and West sides. And in the process of my doing that, I knew that everybody was upset with Jane Byrne, and they were talking about running a black person for mayor to challenge her. And the basic two candidates was Roland Burris and Harold Washington. And through my contacts in the black community, I discovered that Harold was going to announce on a Wednesday, and I broke the story that Harold was going to be a candidate on the Monday paper. It was top of the fold, big headlines, Washington and mayor's race. And on the op-ed page, because I'd written an opinion piece that predicted that the next mayor of Chicago would be black. And so I've got to know Harold. I eventually went to City Hall to cover when Harold became the actual mayor. I went there to cover him, and it was horrible. The fight was on, and it was a difficult time. Mark, hello.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. You mean in terms of the battles that went on?
Yeah,
in the city?
between the 29 and Harold. It
Right.
was the thing. I mean, it was so bad there. It was so tense that the white alderman secretaries weren't speaking to the black alderman secretary, and vice versa. I mean,
Yeah, and well, I would argue that there was no better personality and no better experienced public official who knew how to navigate through that and to weave it to get to the point that he was able to get in terms of um, basically disassembling the 29 by getting 4 people elected, and then he became the tie-breaking vote.
Yeah, that happened. But that was a long court fight. But that, yeah, and some rulings over.
Many court fights.
Yeah,
There were many court fights.
Yeah. But I mean, the one that made that possible. That was 3.5 years into his administration, basically.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
The thing is, Harold was such a dynamic speaker, and he knew the game and how to play it because he had been a part of the Democratic machine at one point and broke with it, but he knew
Right.
how to operate with them, and he was an intellectual, and he always had a book in his hand. well, not always, but almost always, lots of times, he carried a book around that he was reading, and
Yeah.
his vocabulary, yeah, his vocabulary was extensive. He would send the reporters run into the dictionary to figure out what was the meaning of the word he used because they had not heard it before. And he had a sly sense of humor. Uh, and he was a fighter. I mean, he was a fighter.
Yeah, I started out earlier, but when you were coming in talking about how he was able to be representative of the entire community, and I played a commercial where he said, we can all win. It was one of his commercials that they ran,
Yeah.
and and he was that kind of mayor, right?
Right.
I had on one of his cabinet members who said that Harold told them, don't bring me any contracts that don't reflect the makeup of the city. If black people are 30% of the city, then black people should be getting 30% of the contracts,
Right.
and so forth and so on. And he said, now don't bring them to me if it doesn't meet the makeup of the city, because I'm not going to sign off on it. We have to make sure that there is fairness and there's equity for all. And this was the commercial that they ran during his first run. You probably remember this commercial. I'm gonna play it because you weren't on when I ran that first piece. But this was Harold's his first
Only
run.
one candidate for mayor has represented Chicago in both Springfield and Washington. Only one candidate has dealt successfully with big city problems in both state and federal government. Only one candidate knows how to get the money and jobs Chicago needs. So what's to keep us from making this candidate our next mayor? Nothing. Elect the one candidate qualified to be the mayor. Harold Washington.
We can all win.
Yeah.
You remember that commercial?
Yeah. What's funny is that one of the white reporters I was interviewing Harold when he was mayor, and basically they were saying, well, he didn't look like a mayor, which was code for black, of course. And he said to him, he said, I am the mayor. So this is how the mayor looks. Yeah, but he didn't let him get away with any of that embedded racism that was happening
Right.
in City Hall with the journalists back then.
Yeah,
And
my favorite one that he did was when Ed Verdoliak was running against him. When Ed Verdoliak was running against him in his second term,
right.
And he beat Ed Verdoliak in the second term. Ed Verdoliak had this commercial of a white glove and a black glove coming together. And they asked Harold about it, and Harold said, well, that's a black glove with a white hand in it.
Right. Yeah, at Harold, you were talking about the fairness. Harold would tell people, the voters, the residents of Chicago all the time, that he was going to be fairer than fair. And he was. And there were some black aldermen didn't really appreciate that. Their mentality was, we got a black man in, we should get all the goodies now. To the victor go the spoils. And so we should get all the goodies like the white alderman had done for a lifetime. And
right.
Yeah, and he refused to do that. And so it's
right.
time.
He refused to do it, but he also refused he refused not to make sure that blacks were included and got that fair share. In fact, he would say during his campaign, he would say, look, he says, I'm going to seek you out. Even if you voted for me or you didn't vote for me, I'm going to seek you out. I'm going to find you. I'm going to make sure that we are fair to you. And as you say, we're going to be fairer than fair. That was who he was.
Yeah. But he also, I mean, he knew the system. For example, when he was running against Jane Byrne, she was distributing turkeys, free turkeys, in the black community to try and influence their vote. And Harold says, "Take the turkey and then vote for me."
Right. Right. And I think that became legend because people would say, take the money and vote for me.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. And yeah. I mean,
Here's a clip that he did with Joel Daly. Now, this was a clip days before Harold Washington died.
Among other things, now hear me, an appreciation for a process. Democracy is not a goal. It's not so many pounds of this or ounces of that. Democracy is a process which is designed to bring out the broadest possible spectrum of opinion for the purpose of making public policy and decisions. The trouble with Chicago, it is retarded. Other cities have moved away from us. Our legacy is one of clout, and we still think of it, and it's killing us. We've got to get away from it. And we've got to stop imposing that kind of a truncated thinking on the leaders. This leader's not going to buy it because he knows that's not the way to run things. But that is the way to do it through that process. Look at the Educational Summit. Watch as this whole parent council matter unfolds, and you will see my idea about how cities should be run in terms of solving serious problems. That's the legacy I want to leave. It goes without saying I want an open government. I want institutions that work. I want people to come together and work cooperatively and interdependently with each other and all those kinds of things. But fundamentally and basically, you've got to get people into an idea of working together through an ordered system of give and take.
So he brought them into the process, is your legacy.
Yes.
That was literally 3 days before he died.
Yeah. But his death caught everybody by surprise. Although he had gained weight. Of course, what he would say, one of his phrases was that everything works, nothing hurts.
Right. Yeah.
I would be surprised.
Unfortunately,
yeah.
Unfortunately, he didn't take care of himself as he should. Certainly given the schedule that he had to keep.
That was the problem, and I was Mayor Sawyer's press secretary when he replaced Harold, and that job back then for a black mayor was really difficult because you had to go to all these different communities, whereas a Mayor Daley just could go see the white folks and make an occasional visit to see the black folks or the Hispanics and get away with it. But everybody wanted to see. Harold was such a celebrity that everybody wanted to see him. So basically, he was working 7 days a week with ungodly hours. And everywhere he went, some people wanted to feed him something, give him some of the food from these various ethnic groups. And so he gained a lot of weight, and he wasn't getting any exercise, and he's under a lot of stress, and it took its toll.
Yeah, it took its toll. I remember an interview that he was doing again with Joel Daley, and they were talking about the educational system. And Harold Washington was one of those mayors who talked about that you don't want the mayor running your education system, and that the mayor should not be involved with the educational system at all.
Yeah, and so he set up uh, a situation where the education board was independent of the
Right.
mayor's office.
Right. And here's a clip of him talking about that.
Let me dispel this laid-back position concept. I'm not laid back any place. First of all, I have made it absolutely clear that the responsibility of a mayor or any other executive official is not to involve himself into the administration of a school system, curricula, etc. That's not the purview of a politician, and you don't want that. The problem in the past in this city is that previous mayors have practically run the public school system, and they have used that system as a market for bond merchants, craft unionists, and contractors. We know that. It's legend. I happen to be the first mayor in 60 years who bothered to even attend the public school system.
Yep.
And then, of course, when Richie Daley got into office, the first thing he did was to go to the legislature to get what he called temporary control of the Chicago public school system, and it was never released.
Right.
Because it was a temporary thing, but it never was turned back over to him. In fact, Dorothy Brown, when she ran for mayor, that's one of the things that she ran on, talking about that the board or the Chicago public school system should not be run by the mayor. It should be run by a separate entity, and the Board of Education. You have a superintendent, an agency, that the mayor should not have anything to do with that. And that was one of the things that she ran on, that she would do if she was elected. And of course, she did not get.
Yeah, well, the Board of Education was the thing that was most influential in our getting Harold to begin with, because Jane Byrne put several white women from the Southwest side on the board when the school system was predominantly black, and she put these white women on, and not even liberal white women. These were some pre-MAGA white women, and it just really upset the black community. This was a slap in the face. And of course, the black community put Byrne in office to begin with. And she immediately started hanging out with the white aldermen, the 29. They became, she began to hang out with them. And so Harold was primed, although he was in Congress at the time. He got elected to Congress. He was very happy being in Congress. And the Black Caucus was using him because he was so articulate and spoke so well to the things that needed to be addressed, that they were using him as a national voice, speaking in different situations to address the problems of Black people. And in the meantime, because Byrne had upset the Black community and they wanted a Black person in City Hall, there was this whole movement to try to convince him to run. And he gave them stipulations because he had run before and been beaten by Richard J. Daley. So he had the experience of knowing what could happen and what you needed to do to have it not happen. So he was just an ideal candidate. and an ideal mayor for us?
Was a man of what they say. He ran in 1978 and he lost. I think it was 78 or 79. He lost to Richard J. Daley at that
Right,
time,
right.
um, and of course this time that came, it was just as they say, it was an idea whose time had come. Everything came together around it. That was, I was not here, but listening to the stories and the backdrop, and then watching some of the documentaries that came out. Punch Nine, which is going to be shown at the Harold Washington Library on this Wednesday at 5 to 7. So if you all wanted to get to know a little more about the mayor, Punch Nine is going to be shown there. I'm going to show a little bit of it, clip of it tonight. But the way that all came together and all these different factions, and every faction from little kids who couldn't vote to the prostitutes on the streets and the drug dealers and everybody, right, from every faction of life came together. And I think 90, it was 95 or 96% of the registered black voters turned out to vote for Harold in that
Oh,
election.
yeah. When I broke the story that Harold was in the mayor's race, I had written this op-ed page piece predicting that there could be a black mayor, and I had written it several weeks earlier, but the Tribune hadn't run it because it was as if I was writing a piece about what if we were invaded by Martians. I mean, it was so alien, the thinking in Chicago. It was a black man couldn't win.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was their thing. So it was like, as far as they were concerned, it was an evergreen piece. It could run in any time because at any given time, a black man couldn't win. However, in my piece, I pointed out that the city was 30% white, 40%. I think at that time it was 40% black. I mean, it was anyway. The math worked out where because you had two popular whites,
Right.
Burns and Ritchie, that if a black candidate ran and the white vote was split between the two of them, the black candidate would win. And it was a very logical argument I presented, but
Well,
nobody.
there was also, the math had to work. If
Right.
if 95% of the registered voters, not to mention that they registered 150,000, because Harold said he gave them requirements. Look, you got to register. At that time, he said register 50,000 people and raise me $250,000.
Yeah.
Well, they registered 150,000 people and they raised $500,000.
Yeah.
And so now you have, you had 150,000 more people added to the voting rolls, and 95% of those people turned out, which he needed every one of those, because in the primary, he only won the primary by about, I think it was 40,000 votes or something like that. It was not a wide margin because they had split.
Right.
So it was 40,000 votes. So that 150,000, he knew exactly what he had to get in order to win.
And he also gave them those numbers because he didn't think they could reach him.
Exactly.
He really wanted to stay in Congress. He's having a good old.
He did say that he loved being in Congress.
Right. And so he didn't think they could do it, but they did. And so he became this candidate. And then what did it was you had this debate I participated as a journalist in the second one. There was a debate with Harold, Mayor Byrne, and Richard M. Daley, and he came on and he made them look so weak and unknowledgeable. I mean, he just came on as a strong man with the truth. He spoke to the people because the day before then, a lot of people didn't know Harold. You know, he had been a local South Side politician. You know, in the state legislature and then in Congress. But he was a South Sider, so the West Side didn't know him. A lot of the South Side didn't know him. But in that debate, he collected names. He called names and collected dues, so that the next day, literally the next day after that debate, there was suddenly a sea of blue buttons in the loop. You could just see black folks wearing their Washington buttons, and it was off to the races.
Yep. This is the signature Harold Washington button.
Yep, that's it.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, listen. We got to turn to some other thing. I'm going to come back a little bit later on. We're going to talk more about Harold Washington before the end of the program. But there's some other things going on in the news now. The president came out and said that posted this thing on Truth Social, posted himself looking like Jesus Christ, or presenting himself as Jesus Christ, and he said that that's not what it was. And he said that it was supposed to be him looking like a doctor.
Depicted as Jesus Christ.
Well, it wasn't depicted. It was me. I did post it, and I thought it was me as the doctor, and had to do with Red Cross as a Red Cross worker there, which we support. And only the fake news could come up with that one. So I just heard about it, and I said, how did they come up with that? It's supposed to be me as a doctor, making people better. And I do make people better. I make people a lot better. As an example, the 11,000, I understand your husband's going through treatment.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
He's
He
going
has
through
cancer.
some very serious cancer treatment. So
Yes, sir.
this goes a long way.
Yes, sir. It sure does.
His lies are threadbare, and they're not working the way they used to anymore. You know,
Well, let me ask you a question.
meaning, where's the stethoscope hanging around his neck since he was a doctor?
Well, here's what he says that looks like a doctor.
Yeah, right. Yep, right. Yep, yeah. The only
So,
thing is the stethoscope.
okay, so well, I'm not sure what that thing is in his left hand that has a glow on it, but I've been in a number of doctors' offices and hospitals, and doctors look more like this to
Right,
me.
exactly. Right.
But he said that this was him. It's supposed to be him looking like a doctor.
Right. And of course he healed us all. If it hadn't been for him, we'd all be with something. Whatever he healed us from it. Dr. Trump. Yeah, his fake news, it doesn't ring as true to MAGA people because he's lying to them so much that even they've gotten to a point. where they're going, oh my God, how can I trust this guy? So he's losing support among uneducated, non-college educated whites. Now, that was one of his strongest bases.
Yes. Well, one of the Republican senators that is in one of the vulnerable districts had a town hall, and they gave him. I didn't get that clip, but they gave him a mouthful.
Right. Yeah.
Howard.
Right. This is a New York Republican.
Yeah. And he is in one of those swing districts that are Republicans and Democrats.
Right.
And they gave him an earful on either last night or the night before that he did this town hall, and they basically called him a coward and that they were enabling Trump.
Right. And there, and last week there was an interview with this woman in Pennsylvania, white woman in Pennsylvania, and she said that Trump had lied to him and made her feel like a fool, and she had voted for him 3 times, and she said that she won't be doing that again. Oh yeah. So he's losing. Yeah. This war is ridiculous, of course. I mean, just and fatal and tragic, and may push us into World War III. The thing that he claimed that Kamala would do if she was elected.
Right.
One of the secrets to Trump is whatever he accuses his quote enemies of doing is what he has done or will do. And he's what psychiatrists say, he's projecting.
I don't think they make it any secret of what they're doing. He certainly is following the script that the Heritage Foundation and ALEC has put together in Project 2025, and using Russell Vought and Stephen Miller as the two that are actually pulling the strings and directing Trump on what to do, and he's following that script.
Well, that's on deportation and a lot of stuff. However, it's not.
Well, deportation is Stephen Miller. Russell Vought is the one who is crafting the entire policy.
Yeah, but what I'm saying, the point I'm making is that even the war with Iran wasn't in the 2025. Right? Mm-hmm. Everybody except Trump, I guess, knew that was a dumb idea of getting in a war with Iran. And so what has happened as a result of that war and his pledge to make sure that Iran never got a nuclear bomb is that they have taken over the Strait of Hormuz. And that's become Iran's nuclear bomb. And it's more effective than if they had a real nuclear bomb, because Iran will be controlling international economics now.
Well, they're certainly because of this quasi position of controlling the straits. Even though most of those tankers go to places like China, they don't come to the United States. But oil, the prices of oil is a global commodity, and so the prices are affected regardless of whether they go. If they're having issues, it affects everybody. It doesn't just affect, one region.
And there are other elements to it also. There's there are other things that's needed, like fertilizer.
Right.
It's going to impact the world in terms of world hunger and the price of food. I mean, it's just he has created such a horrible mess that that nobody quite seems to be able to figure out how we're going to get out of it.
Well, you know, and that is a great segue into the way that we get out of it is whether or not that they have the actual courage to do the right thing, and the right thing would be to remove him from office by enacting the 25th Amendment.
Yeah, I mean, that's not going to get us out of the mess he's made, but yeah.
Well, it's not going to get us out of it. It will certainly stop the progression of what it is that he is doing, that nobody is that knows anything about what he's doing, because he's not consulting with anybody. He's just making decisions.
Well, it's becoming apparent to folks that he is demented. You know, he's clinically. We just need a doctor to tell us this, but he's clinically demented. He has Alzheimer's or some other mental disease, and so what he's doing is crazy. It makes no sense whatsoever. Somebody wrote about him. They said his policy was in gut we trust, and that's what he's doing. Is whatever he's feeling or thinking, he's doing this, and so we get tacoed all the time. Trump always chickens out because he makes these nutty decisions, and then he has to peel back on them. And he was lying when he made them, and he lies when he's cutting back on them. I mean, it's just, we really are in dangerous times, and we will get the Congress, the House back for sure in November. There's a decent possibility that we'll get the Senate too, if we get the House and the Senate, and he's still in office, because they may be forced to do the 25th Amendment, where his cabinet votes that he's not able to function properly in the job, and remove him.
Yeah, what that means is that the president has to gather his cabinet. The vice president has to gather the cabinet at his residence, and the majority of the cabinet has to vote that the president is unfit to maintain his job, and they have to vote to remove him.
Right.
Now, I don't know that there are a majority of the people in his cabinet that have that kind of courage. That means they would have to have a serious defection. There would have to be a serious defection in his cabinet to do that.
Yeah, this is true, and the stuff, he's getting progressively worse day by day. It's not even week by week anymore. You know, this thing with Jesus and attacking the Pope. I mean, it's just crazy. I mean, it's absolutely. I mean, he's treating the Pope like he's Barack Obama or something. I mean, the disrespect he's showing on that.
Well, the highest ranking Catholic in an interview on Fox News, J.D. Vance, which is the highest rated ranking Catholic in the federal government, was asked the question to respond to the president's criticism of the Pope.
Right.
And this was his answer. Vance said that he would advise the Vatican to stick to matters of morality, to stick to matters of, what's going on in the Catholic Church, and let the president of the United States stick to dictating American public policy, unquote.
Yeah. Well, you remember when uh, um, King, the basketball player, uh, criticized Trump, and one of the Fox players said he should just keep. I mean, anchors said he should get LeBron James because LeBron James was critical, and
Mhm.
they said he should just dribble the basketball and keep his
Right,
mouth shut on everything else. You
right.
know, that that's the attitude, the mentality of the Trump administration, and as Clinton used to say, that dog won't hunt anymore.
No, no, not at all. Um, so I'm looking at his cabinet and trying to imagine, because this is about all we do is to imagine, of his cabinet, who would act, even if JD Vance were to go um, to his residency and
Yeah,
call the cabinet in.
yeah.
I who could you even point to that would remotely defect? It's certainly not going to be Todd Blanche.
Well, we don't know who it will be until Trump drops the straw that broke the camel's back. Well, of course, which could be
Well, what is that?
this
What
whole
is what is the straw that breaks the camel's back? Because he's dropped a lot of straws that.
yeah. Well,
Um,
this whole religious thing may be an attack the Pope. May be it. We don't know yet. I mean, we 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 have things going on so rapidly and so insanely. The war may be it. It may that be that combination. Um, these if these billionaires that he has on the cabinet uh, may look at their um, stock portfolios and decide enough is enough, that that's going in the wrong direction. I mean, Trump has alienated everybody. Not, I mean, he's even alienating the MAGA people now. And he is just, I mean, he each day or week, sometimes as much as a week, he comes up with something new and crazy to alienate the people, the few people that like him. I mean, his ratings are down in the 30s. That's unprecedented
yeah, he's
for
down about 36 or 37%,
yeah,
which probably
right,
represents the MAGA base,
right. No, because
right?
he lost young people who
Right.
voted for him. He's lost the so-called manaverse, which is the young white men that were going for him. He's losing part of his MAGA base right now, and the midterms are just around the corner, and there are lots of Republicans that are with good cause are worried about their jobs, and so that's, I mean, it is not good for him, and he knows it.
Without question, which is why he's trying to, which is why he's trying to impose this executive order on voting by mail,
Right. Well,
or
that's
restrictions, I should say.
yeah, that's part of his election rigging scheme, because he can't get the Republicans will not be able to get the vote for anything in November. So what they're trying to do is figure out ways to steal it, to cheat and steal it.
Well,
Yeah,
I think that based on what we saw that happened in Hungary with Victor
Well,
Orban and Peter Magyar, the 45-year-old, who was actually a member of his
cabinet, yeah.
a member of his cabinet
Yeah.
that that just said what you said before, that he was basically saying this is far away from what it was that you had promised the people. And the people had real hope in him 16 years ago.
Right.
And of course, this is reflective. And if this is reflective of what's happening around the world, which it seems to be, because over in another election that they are experiencing the same thing. But you know, here are the people of Hungary, which is, I forget what the population is over in Hungary, but these people are out in the streets by the millions. I mean, I saw clips after clip after clip of people out on the streets. It looked like it was in the millions all over Hungary, celebrating this victory. And I think that that the new prime minister elect got like 153 seats.
Yeah, it was a landslide.
A complete landslide to 55 of the Arbonne. So they basically have zero. He's got two-thirds of the parliamentary there to govern. And
Right.
so, and then of course Trump, which has complete doo-doo on his face, sent J.D. Vance over there to spend almost a week,
Right. Thinking
that somehow that they're going to get this man elected.
Right, exactly. Well, Trump and Putin were the only people that really wanted him back in office.
Well, they figured that if he was to get elected, then that somehow are the tea leaves to what's going to happen with them. Now, of course, Putin, just kills anybody that tries to do anything democratically over there. But I think that what happened in Hungary is a precursor to what could happen here in the United States. Now,
no, it is. And the thing is, they were the Trump administration and the white supremacists all over the world, actually country leaders, were hoping that Orban would do okay, because that would demonstrate how the trend was in their favor. And now it's obvious that the trend is not in their favor, that the world is so turned off by this whole strongman movement going on in democratic countries that it's about to come to a screeching halt.
Does this give Marjorie Taylor Greene any type of hope that she could be that defector here?
Oh, she has the hope already. That's why she quit the Congress, so she can position herself to run for president. I don't.
My question is, do you think that this boasts her confidence to see that if Peter Magyar can defect from Peter Orban and see that she could be the person to defect from Donald Trump and still be the hope for the Republican Party?
Yeah. Oh no, she when she quit, that's what was on her mind. You know, what she's doing is saying that Trump has strayed away from America First, the whole America First thing, and that she is true MAGA and he's not. He's just Trump. He has the Trump party now, not the MAGA movement. And so that's going to be one of her arguments. But the reality of the situation is that Trump has been so bad, so poor in his job, so incompetent in his job that he alone is turning away people from conservatism. And so we the pendulum's swinging the other way now.
Well, yeah, I mean, Democrats have won 284 seats. I'm sorry, 254 seats out of 284 races, and flipped 38 seats.
Yeah.
From Republicans, and then down in Georgia in Marjorie Taylor Greene's district,
Yeah.
Sean Harris, you know, there was a 20-point swing
Right.
there that, you know, that the Democrats made there, and Sean Harris is running as the Democratic candidate against the man who, for all intents and purposes, barely won, even though, you know, it was a 54% to 45% or something like that margin.
Right.
But that is a district that Trump won by some 30 points.
Well, no, so it's the reddest district in Georgia,
And probably one of the reddest districts in the country.
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
sure.
Right.
But Sean Harris, who's going to be on this program next week, is running.
That's a good catch for you, Mark.
Yeah. Very confident that he is that he's going to prevail.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
so what do you think of what was this whole thing with Melania coming out and giving her press conference for whatever that was? What was that all about?
Nobody could figure it out. Trump didn't know it was coming. You know, my theory is that they had a marital spat the day before of some sort, and she says, "Okay, I'll show you, buddy," because she just got $20 million from Netflix to do that movie that nobody watched. So she got a little something in her change purse, and so she came out and said the opposite of what Trump is trying to keep the whole Epstein information out of the public, to have a cover up for it, because he's guilty. He's part of it. And she goes and holds a press conference on her own and says that she didn't know Epstein, which was a lie, but she didn't know that Epstein, and they barely knew him, and that they should have this hearing with the victims.
Mm-hmm.
And in the meantime, the victims are not very supportive of what she called for. They said, well, they've been in hearings. Everybody knows what they said. They want the names of the rich and powerful men who were involved in the Epstein case and who's been getting away with it for a couple of decades now. That's the survivors want those guys. They don't want to go and testify and that's it. They want the guilty to be exposed as guilty and punished for it.
Well, the question is that there may be a statute of limitation issue, even if they were to expose all of the creeps that were a part of that scheme. there's a
Yeah.
statute of limitation that they're going to have a challenge with in terms of holding anybody accountable. I mean, I guess you could hold them accountable by embarrassing them and exposing them. But the people who are from different countries, because this is not just here in the United States, people who are
Right.
involved in it are people who are all over the world. I mean, they were paying
Right.
hundreds of millions of dollars to keep this racket going with abusing these women, many of them women from overseas and European young girls that they brought
Right.
over here or trafficked over here
Right.
for these men to use as their property of toys
Yeah.
and to abuse, I should say.
Yeah, but that it's nothing new. I mean, this has been going on for centuries.
Right.
Yeah, but right now it's been brought to attention, and it was initially it was the MAGA people who were clamoring for it because they thought it would get Clinton, and they wanted to do that, and they thought it was just going to be just Democrats. But lo and behold, is
Mm-hmm.
rich men of power here, there, and everywhere.
So, there seems to be a double standard because there seems to be this self-righteous indignation coming from the Republicans about this Jerry Swalwell and of course Rodriguez, the Republican. There seems to be this rush to judgment of these two men, even though there has not been a trial. There's only been allegations. There's no substantiated evidence to it, and I'm not here to say that there is not.
Right.
But there is clearly a double standard here that they are coming out without even knowing what the evidence is and calling for expulsion from of these two people, and there has not been a trial at all, but we have a person who has been found liable of rape and sexual assault to the tune of $400 million of a judgment that they have to pay plus interest.
Right.
Who is convicted of 34 felonies. That is the president of the United States of America, that the entire Republican apparatus have wrapped their arm around him as though he was Jesus.
Yeah.
With no blemishes.
Right. No, they believe the racist white Christians movement. There's a movement going on, and they believe that Trump is an instrument of God, and so it's okay that he's imperfect because this is what God wants to happen, which is mainly to keep America white, to kick as many brown people out, and to turn the clock back for black folks to the 1950s when we knew our place.
Oh, that must be the theology of the Trump Bible.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Right. That's
now I get it. That's the
down.
Right, of the Trump Bible.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So the thing with the two congressmen who resigned today, they had to go. They were pawns in this whole battle now over making Trump and the other rich men responsible for their crimes. And so couldn't keep these guys.
Did they both resign?
Yeah. Yeah, they both resigned today.
Okay.
Yeah, and the reason, and it was bipartisan for Caldwell. I don't know whether it was bipartisan for the Republican, but they've been trying to get him to go for a while now. This is not anything new. His charges are have been established for some time, and he just was being stubborn. But I think because of what the Epstein files have been held, half of them, with what is it, 3 million or something,
Right.
they still haven't been exposed. I think the movement to try to get to that, they couldn't keep these congressmen in place who had committed similar offenses. That wasn't a good look. So they not only,
But it's an okay look for a president that committed probably more heinous.
yeah, it's not a good look for him. That's why they're trying to get him. That's what this is what this is a
Who's
chest.
trying to get him?
The Republicans and some Republicans and a lot of Democrats. This is the complication in this whole thing, is that Epstein was the object and subject of the right wanting justice, saying they wanted justice, and this was horrible what happened. And then when it was realized that Trump is all his fingerprints are all over this crime, everywhere. His pictures and everything. And those who love Trump, and they're trying to keep it secret. Or those who fear Trump, they're trying to keep it secret. But some of the Republican MAGA opinion uh, makers have turned against Trump, this whole keeping the Epstein files out, because they spent years demanding that the Epstein files be made public. And they can't afford to be hypocritical about this because they make buku bucks through the internet, people listening to their podcast. And so they have their own public that they have to please. And they can't come.
So let me ask you this, and then we can move on to this whole gas thing. Why did not why did not the Democrats expose this when they were in power?
They didn't have the information, first of all, and the Republicans.
They got the information back in 2018. This was investigated back in 2018.
Yeah, but that was a handful of Democrats. That wasn't the Democrats in power.
But Joe Biden was elected. When Joe Biden was elected, they were in power and they had the ability to expose this. I'm not understanding why the Democrats did not expose this when they were in power to do so.
This wasn't the Democrats' issue at that time. It was the Republicans' issue because they thought they were going to get the Democrats. As a result of that, it was the whole MAGA movement and the right wing pushing for it. And of course, I
get that. Yeah. I get all of that. But now the Democrats are pushing very heavily to get it.
Right.
And my question is, why didn't they push to expose it when they were in power to do so?
It wasn't their issue. It was the Republicans' issue. the Republicans were pushing for it. It wasn't their political issue. They were focused on other things. And the Republicans and these women came forth. I mean, when Epstein ended up committing suicide, air quotes, then it became more of an awareness among Americans in general. Before, it was mainly the right pushing it, demanding that it happen because they thought it was going to get Clinton.
Right. I still get all that. I'm still confused as to why why the Democrats did make it their issue, even though the Republicans were pushing it back then. Because now the Democrats are really pushing for it, and they don't have the controls in order to release everything that needs to be released.
Well, no, they have controls. It's in the courts. It's been ruled. They came up with a law that all the files were supposed to be exposed.
Right.
Yeah.
But only they're not in control of the Department of Justice, who's responsible for releasing the information the way
exactly. They won't be in control until January 20 of next year.
Right. All right. So lastly, Donald Trump was on Fox. Maria Bartiromo asked him a question about gas prices, and this was his response.
Do you believe the price of oil and gas will be lower before the midterm elections?
I hope so. I mean, I think so. It could be, or the same, or maybe a little bit higher, but it should be around the same. I think this won't be that much longer.
Yep. He's lying. And the problem is, this is one of these lies. In fact, this is undermining his credibility with the MAGA crowd, and the Republicans, because he can tell you all these other lies that he's told you about things, and they chose to believe it. But with gasoline, they're driving up each week. Gas is going up more in price, and people got to get their gas tanks full to go to work or wherever they want to go. And so they are seeing these prices go up. They're having to pay it. Some of them are having to decide whether they put gas in the tank to continue their lifestyle or get pissed off. And they're pissed off right now. And it's not going down. The prices of gas will not be going down anyway soon.
We're certainly not going to be going down anytime soon, because gas price typically spikes during the summertime because there is much more demand for traveling. And I think it's really going to be, I think that the public is really going to show their outrage, because they are, they're going to have to be making some decisions, of course, in terms of what they budget.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, if it were not for my discount that I get over at Costco, which is a company that I support and believe in because of the way that they take care of their people.
Right. They're very good.
I would be paying $1.48 more a gallon if I didn't get the discount that you get by shopping at Costco.
Right.
So here, gasoline is up by $1.50 a gallon.
Yeah, I mean, it's even up in Indiana, which is where a lot of people from Chicago on the south.
They go there because they don't have a gas tax.
Right, exactly. exactly. But this is the problem with this whole for us. You know, you, me, anybody in the country that can't afford overpriced gas is that it's not getting cheaper. Trump lied. It's not going to get cheaper because Iran is now controlling the strait,
Right.
and they're going to Iran's going to start charging these tankers a fee to get through unbombed, and therefore that's going to get passed on to us because gas is a global market. It's not a one place, and if you fix that, it's okay. So we're going to be paying.
Aren't the other countries now going to be afraid to move because of the blockade by the United States that are
The
threatening?
blockade of the blockade. Oh no, that's so stupid. That's going to be over by the time you have your show next week. The blockade of the blockade is going to be over. Either that or World War III.
Pull those tankers.
What?
So he'll be pulling those tankers, you think, by next week? Because he has those tankers. He's got about 14 tankers out now that are supposedly making sure that none of those tankers are coming through.
Yeah. What's he going to do? Start blowing them up? No, there will be pressure, political pressure, international political pressure, because this is such a mess, and it's no easy solution. But he can't stop those tankers from coming through. That's going to increase prices of gasoline more. That's what that would do. Is okay. Well, because right now, Iran is letting some tanks go through, and they're going to start collecting money, and they'll, if you pay them the right fee, then you come through unblown up. But it's just an untenable political situation. Period. I mean, it is the height of Trump's folly and stupidity.
Well, here's a guy who says that he makes decision based on his gut instincts.
Right.
He makes decisions based on his gut instincts. So, but then he poses himself as Jesus Christ, as one who makes decisions based on moral, spiritual convictions.
Right.
But I guess then that's why he says that he was not dressed as Jesus Christ, because he was dressed as a doctor.
Right. Now he said that because there was outrage, because that was pure blasphemy, and for
without question. Without question.
Right. Yeah. And so Christians of all stripes are upset. He took it down. He took that image down of him like
not before most of us can capture it. Yes.
Right. Exactly. I know. No. He is in such trouble. He's in a downfall, and he may have bottomed out. He may not have yet, but it doesn't matter. I mean, he is a lame duck walking as a president. He's not going to have any power except foreign power, where Congress can't get in on that.
But he clearly said in that clip that we saw that he heals people.
Yeah, right. I know. He lies. If his lips or fingertips are moving, he's lying. Period.
That's usually attributed to a 15 or a 16-year-old. That's
Yeah.
usually attributed to a 15 or a 16-year-old. You know that most time if you ask a 15-year-old about something that, that they were supposed to be doing or not supposed to be doing, that the minute they start to moving their lips, it's filled with a bunch of lies. But
Right.
here we have an 80-year-old, 15-year-old, or 14-year-old that can stand before the media and lie. Now, here's my issue is, why isn't the media pressing him even harder on some of these things?
They're pressing him. He's being pressed all over the place. What he has done for the past 10 years is he does so many outrageous things. One thing that Trump does with a regular president would be a crisis for weeks on end, because of the outrageous things Trump does, things Trump commits to. It's outrageous for one news cycle, because then he's doing something else outrageous that you have to. He says, he has all this. If you think about all this crazy stuff going on, this Trump Arc de Trump that he's building, that's going to be bigger than the Washington Monument, that he's trying to do. He's still trying to
You're talking about the ballroom?
His ballroom. He's trying to do that. They're preparing his jet for him. He does. First of all, his administration is by far the most corrupt administration in American history. He's making Nixon look like a choir boy in comparison. So the press reports this stuff, but then just when they're looking into this one thing, then he reports something else. You can't keep up with it.
No, you can't.
Right.
I think Nixon was more somebody who just was about power than he was about enriching himself.
Oh yeah, no, he was yeah, right. Yeah. I think of Trump as Goldfinger. And then, I'm amazed that the media hasn't pointed out the similarities there.
It's pretty astonishing. It's pretty astonishing. But it's also sort of telling. So, at first, I didn't really see that there was a probable pathway to the Democrats taking a greater position in the Senate.
Yeah.
I think that based on what we're very different countries and we have, very different ways of doing things. But there is this sense around the world that democracy matters. Democracy matters. And what has been happening with places like Argonne and with Trump here in the United States, and I think that people are paying more attention to what Trump has been doing here in the United States that authoritarians have been doing around the rest of the world for years. But I think that when they see that it's being done here in the United States, that's never been done in the manner that we are seeing it today. We've never experienced this sort of thing, but it impacts the rest of the world. That the Hungarian people would make the kind of shift that they made in such an enormous way do you believe that that is something that will be in the minds of Democrats, Republicans, and independents in masses here to take that same kind of revolt against what is happening now?
Americans don't care about foreign countries. They don't pay any attention unless we had a war going there or something. So they're not paying any attention to that.
You don't think that the Americans are paying attention to what happened in Hungary?
No, not much. No, I don't. I don't.
So you don't think that it will have any type of residual impact here?
Well, I think it's a sign of what's to come, but it's not. They're not going, oh, look what they did over there, so we're going to do the same. It's Trump is pissing everybody off all by himself, and in fact, Orban, he did what he tried to correct it at the end, but he's done too much, and what he's done compared to what Trump is doing again is junior varsity. So they're not looking at that. No. But anyway, Mark, I gotta go get some dinner.
All right. Well, listen.
Yeah.
We certainly appreciate you for coming in. And listen, next week, like as I said, we're going to be talking with Sean Harris. If you want to be a part of that interview, you know you're always welcome. That's going to be a very interesting conversation that we're going to be having with him on next week's program.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
Yeah.
Monroe Anderson. All right. Thank you so much.
Okay. All right. Take care.
All right. Take care. Yeah, folks. All right. That's Monroe Anderson for this week's Monroe Monday. And of course, we had a whole lot to cover there. I want to go back to Harold Washington. We're going to, I want to give you some information about some things that are going to be taking place so that if you want to participate in some of those events, there are going to be some great things going on that you can that you can participate in, and I want to bring up a flyer of information. As again, for those of you who are just tuning in, if you're tuning in late, Harold Washington would be 103 years old on this coming Wednesday. He was born on April the 15th. His 103rd birthday is going to be on Wednesday, and there's going to be a host of programs that are taking place. So we, so there are some events that are going on. You know, I have them on the screen. So coming up on tomorrow night, they'll have a luncheon that is taking place with the Harold Washington Legacy Committee. And so Lois Steen, who is the she is the president now of she's the president now of the Harold Washington Legacy Committee, and so that they have a host of events that are taking place on this week that you'll be able to take part in. April the 15th at the Harold Washington Library from 5 p.m. to 7:30 as they continue to honor him. There is going to be a college celebration at 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. And then at in the evening in the library, they're going to be showing the documentary of Punch 9 and a panel discussion about Harold Washington on Wednesday. And then, of course, on Tuesday, they have the event that has taken place. I'm trying to find her email that she sent to me. Let me see if I can find that. Okay, here we go. Yeah, so on Tuesday, I'm sorry, on Monday, which is today, they had the voter registration drive. On Wednesday, they have the programming from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. At the Harold Washington Library, a panel discussion. It is about the power in voting, and they're going to be showing the Punch 9 documentary. All of this that will be free. That's 400 South State Street at the Harold Washington Library. And then on Thursday, at the Harold Washington College, the annual Harold Washington birthday luncheon that is also free. And the keynote speaker is going to be Lionel Kimball. And this is being hosted by the Harold Washington Legacy Committee. And this is, it's a free event, but it is an invitation only event. And so Deborah Crable is facilitating that event. And then on Friday, there's going to be a roundtable discussion, Know Your Power and Your Vote. And that location is going to be announced. And then, of course, they are having on Saturday, there's going to be an event at Saturday, April 18th, 9:30 a.m. until noon. And that is at the, again, Roosevelt University, the Scholarship Brunch, 430 South Michigan. And the keynote speaker of that would be Alderman Lamont Robinson. And so those are the events that will be taking place. But I want to just give you all, because I know that some of you have maybe a little bit younger, or at the time, you didn't really pay a whole lot of attention. But as I said at the outside of the program, that Harold Washington had a significant impact on my political public life. I'm not an elected official. I've never run for public office, but certainly he catapulted me into really understanding the importance of being engaged in the public process, and so that we can work with people who are in public office, get people into public office that are going to work together to address very serious concerns. And that's what Harold Washington was all about. And he was also all about in addressing those serious concerns, which means talking about addressing serious concerns of the lack of equity. So I'm going to play a few other clips of Harold Washington talking about the city and what he thought. This was during an interview of his first term that he was in office, and it was on a program called Dimensions at the time.
In the sense that we were beaten down, our potentialities were not realized because the system didn't permit it. A good example, for years and years and years prior to my coming into office, women never had a significant role to play in this government, none whatsoever. You couldn't find them.
With the obvious exception of your predecessor?
Well, she was at the top of the heap, but there were no women below her. People are shocked when I say this, that we have put more women in significant, powerful decision-making positions than all mayors over the past 50 years. And even the previous mayor didn't bring women into office. We did that. we opened it up. Hispanics had no role to play in government. Blacks had a very small role to play. And so the city was depressed in the sense that a lot of talent just couldn't rise to the surface. And you can go on and on and on. The system of how you take care of certain constituent groups has radically changed. There was emphasis upon the big builder and the big booster, and certain affluent neighborhoods which got all the largesse and others got none. We balanced that out. Yeah, we were depressed, beaten down, and ruled very, very rigorously.
So this was Harold Washington when he talked about there was only a few people who participated in. One of the things that he made sure of is that, and he would say, and there were times on his campaign where he went into the Black community and he said, look, I am going to be the mayor for everybody, and I have to be fair to everybody. But know this, that I am going to be the first mayor that is going to be fair to this community. And he demonstrated that by making sure that it was, as he said, balanced out, meaning that we are 30%, more than 30% of the population of the city, and that the city's resources should be dispersed and invested in that same manner. It has not been done since Harold Washington had been mayor. Here he is talking about the media.
And I say one of the problems with the city, which I must deal with immediately, is the jaundiced eye of the media. I would assume that would be one of the most vivid aspects of this administration. How can you overlook the president of the school board? How can you overlook the president of the Board of Health? How can you overlook Ms. Maria Cerda, who heads up the Mayor's Office of Employment Training? How can you overlook Ben Reyes, who is one of my liaisons? How can you overlook the Hispanic Council, which is not only comprised of Hispanics, but also operate in terms of executive? How can you overlook the fact that we've increased the amount of dollars going into the Hispanic community from a minuscule 1% of community development block grant funds to almost 10–12% now? How can you overlook the fact that when we came into office, Hispanics represented less than 1% of the decision-making positions and now have 11? It's just amazing that could be. Then how could they overlook, for example, the fact that we have been in the forefront of the drive to make certain, one, that Hispanics had adequate representation in City Council?
You and the media
If the media is on that kick, then we got a real problem in this city.
He went on to talk about some challenges.
Relatively rough times, except perhaps Mr. Bradley in California, maybe one others. But if you trace the history and go to each of the cities where you've had black mayors arising, and perhaps if you go back even further and look at other major cities where you've had transitions from one ethnic group to another, I think you'll find a pattern of friction. And when you superimpose on that, the new boy on the block bringing in a different system, then you've had serious controversy over the years. So it's nothing new. We're here in Chicago, so it looks monumentally different, but it's not. It appears to be different from others outside Chicago because Chicago is such a controlled city, such a depressed city, such a monolithic city, such a singularly and ruthlessly ruled city that people felt it would never change. And so anything short of total quiescence, which we had under the previous administration, looks like a big cyclone.
So that's the Mayor Harold Washington. And again, I counted a real blessing to have moved to the city of Chicago from Miami, Florida at that time, and having the opportunity to be here in the city. When I came to the city of Chicago, I was working for a company and worked for that company for a very short period of time, and decided that Chicago was a place that I wanted to call home. I wanted to make it my home, but I didn't want to go back into anyone's employ, and that had to be the motivation of being able to provide for myself. It took, some time and some struggles and some of being able to be where I am at this point. But I don't think that I could have had the kind of growth that I have in terms of understanding the political spectrum that I have and the commitment to it that I have now, were it not for the motivations of and the example of a Harold Washington. I have not seen, including in Barack Obama, I have not seen the type of example of a Harold Washington of anybody at any level of government, anywhere before Harold Washington and since Harold Washington. And that is who I try to model in terms of how I go about advocating for issues that are pertinent to our community, from education to economics or social justice. And in the case where we are working and certainly coming up with strategies on how to push back on a Cook County State's attorney that is trying to block the certificate of innocence of a young man who is exonerated of a crime that he had nothing to do with, but yet they're paying $1 million to two firms to block that certificate of innocence. We've got to change that. We've got to force our public officials to look at that current policy and amend that policy, that people who are exonerated of offenses that they did not commit and the state is not going to retry that person or recharge that person certainly should receive their automatic certificate of innocence, and we should not be paying private companies to block a person's certificate of innocence. The only time that a certificate of innocence should be blocked is if, in fact, that person may have been exonerated and the state or the prosecutors or the state's attorneys are going to be retrying that person for those offenses because they believe that they have the evidence of them. Under those circumstances, that may be something that could be discussed and worked out, because there are also some nuances there. Because if we have a system that says that if you are charged of a crime and you are tried, then the state has the responsibility to bring a trial, and they have a responsibility that they must prove beyond a reasonable doubt, that you are the person who in fact committed that offense, and they must convince a juror of your peers, and that jury must come back, and that jury must find that the evidence put forth after they have deliberated, they have to come up with a finding. And if that jury finds that the state has met its burden of providing evidence that supports a conviction beyond a reasonable doubt, that's what our process is. But if a person has been exonerated, or even after they have been convicted and they have been exonerated, then that person should be able and be entitled to their automatic certificate of innocence. They should not be required, as the law now states, that if you are exonerated by a court, you have to go before the court again, and you have to prove to the court that you are innocent of that offense, although you have been exonerated by an appellate court that you are, or in Kevin Jackson's case, the appellate court exonerated him of that crime. But he is before a court right now, and we're going to be back in court on April the 30th with Kevin Jackson and at 2650 South California. And he has to go before the court. And we're trying to find out if, in fact, that the states or the Attorney General, under their authority, if they have authority to step in. I was made aware that that might be an avenue. But the point being is, these are things that we're working on. The other is that we're working on this whole felony review, where the state's attorney again has decided that she is empowering police officers of a department that is already ridden with a reputation of coercing people to confess to crimes just so that they can get a conviction that the person may not have had anything to do with. And we have in the state, and certainly here in the city of Chicago and the county of Cook, where the city of Chicago is responsible for more than 574 wrongful conviction. That is another area that we are working on. So these are issues that we're working on. We're working on trying to rid the city and the state of an unjust policy of photo enforcement, of red light cameras and speed cameras. I know that people think that we need to have them. They are not producing the placebo of safety that people think that they are. And if that's the case, why do we have 100 more fatal crashes in the city of Chicago post having these cameras? Every year we are 100 people more of fatalities in the city of Chicago. So apparently these systems don't do what they are purported to do. They are simply systems in place where the city has abdicated their role and responsibility of police officers, monitoring our streets, enforcing proper traffic monitoring, developing and designing our streets so that they are much more safety designed, so that we don't have people who are just running amok and doing the kinds of reckless driving that we see people are doing today. And they're one of the reasons why we see so many people doing the kind of reckless driving that we are seeing happening today is because they know, for the most part, that there is not going to be a police officer that's going to be pulling them over. I've seen, on a weekly basis where people commit serious acts of improper driving in front of police officers, and police officers do not respond. So they know that the Chicago Police Department has basically completely deferred any type of traffic monitoring, traffic safety monitoring to red light cameras and speed cameras, which only the camera can catch you if you run through a red light or if you speed at a camera. They can catch you after, but they do not have the kind of prevention according to all kinds of analysis. We did a 10-year analysis of speed cameras. We did a 10-year analysis of the 162 speed cameras that have been in place, and we did a 10-year analysis of the location where they put 50 new speed cameras. 10-year analysis of those places that did not have cameras at the same time of the 162. what we found was, and this is all coming from the city's own data. So this is not data that we made up or brought in. This is all of the city's own data. What we found was that there was no significant difference whatsoever. So this is a system that does not work. So that's what I'm talking about in terms of getting involved. All right, that's going to do it for this week's edition of the People Show. Stay tuned and tune in next week. Got a great show coming up for you, but that's going to do it for us on this Monday night's edition right here on intellectualradio.com and iHeartRadio. We'll see you all next week.